Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a new week on Bears 365, a Monday edition of the show here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, coming to you live from a different location for the week, but we'll be here all week nonetheless. Johnny Mack, how you doing this Monday morning, brother?
Doing well. You're better off than me. We're in the doom of gloom of South Jersey. A little bit of rain, back to being cold. It's that time of year. Hopefully, we can turn the corner at some point.
No good weather up there this weekend?
No.
Last weekend was
last weekend
awesome
was nice.
up there. It's one of my favorite times of the year, though, when the weather does turn, and you get some of that first couple of days. But now it's hot down here in Florida, in South Florida, where I am, Southwest Florida. But John, plenty of stuff to talk about. We got a good week shows here as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. What are we, 17 days out from that first round, that Thursday night? So it's moving right along, Johnny Mack, and a couple more top 30 visits commence for the Eagles. So we got those to talk about, but a great weekend of sports, John. Did you happen to catch the Final Four games or any of the Phillies games or anything? Because I had a busy weekend with some family matters, but I did.
Yeah, I was taking care of everything falling apart here on me, but no, I didn't see. I did get the reaction of people, which the NCAA tournament I find amusing. Upset. Yeah. I'm like, it's 1 versus 1 and 1 versus 1. There are no upsets.
Yeah.
I can't believe Duke lost. I got a lot of that. I'm like, really? Because I think the other team's better.
But if you watch that game, Bill.
No, they had a big comeback. But I mean, talent-wise, talent perspective. So nobody would have surprised me if they won that. Dawn Staley got racked, South Carolina in the women's tournament.
Yeah, so I didn't see that game, but I just saw the final score.
Yeah, UConn back on top there. And then the Phillies beat the greatest team in baseball history on the series. And Philly fans, we'll talk about that. Chip Kerr's going to be on. They made. Well, you can tell it's spelled out. They treat every game. I got this text chain with a bunch of Phillies. They treat every game like it's an Eagles game, like it's life or death.
Yeah,
like it's life.
Well, listen, that's part of what makes Philly fans great. But here's my takeaway as a Philly fan. All right, if this team gets hot at the right time, they can contend for a World Series. Now, a lot of things have to go your way. Obviously, it's a long season. It's a long baseball season. But I think if they get hot at the right time, that's a team that can contend clearly because they've started out hot here. I think they're 7-2 to start the season.
Yeah, so and they won a series over the Dodgers. Yeah, exciting. Tough. So people. Yeah, it's a very good team, and they're in the conversation. As long as you're in the conversation, if everything goes your way, you got a shot. But you're going to lose some games in baseball.
Yeah,
you're even gonna beg off and lay up and give away games as a manager to get through a season. If you got a week where you're low on pitching staff, you might throw a guy to just get bombed out there to eat some innings. It's not football. If you're really, really good, you're going to lose 62 of them. But boy, the mentality is just. Third inning. Oh, they're terrible. It's over.
I think part of it has become a shtick for Philadelphians.
You think?
Oh yeah, of course, obviously. But no.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right because, boy, I remember when I worked in a newsroom and there was a Phillies fan looking at spring training, getting upset at spring training base, like legitimately upset. Like they gave up 2 runs in the 7th.
John, that passion of the Philadelphia fan base is why Birds 365 exists. All right, because these fans are passionate.
But in baseball, I'm just making you aware. I mean, you're going to lose some games. Yeah. Don't get so worked up about it.
Anyway, no, I hear you. The Duke game is crazy because it was like they had no field goals in the last 10 minutes. They were winning the game. They should have won the game. But the thing I loved about that game is Houston, man, old school coaching, grind them up on defense. Duke couldn't buy a bucket, and Houston comes back.
Yeah, it was a good game. The depressing part, though, again, about the tournament is, the history of the tournament is upsets and
right.
Cinderella's going far. And, to have one versus one, it's a bunch of stormtroopers, one versus
well, that's
one.
what it's going to mean, John.
Yeah.
That's just beginning, with NIL and college basketball and then the way college sports are progressing. I mean, let's be real. That gone are the days of, probably at least, maybe not fully, but mostly gone are the days of big upsets like that. I think at least.
Yeah. Well, you're probably right. And that's one of the reasons I don't think college basketball is quite as exciting as it used to be.
Yeah, well, I mean that's even on that Florida game where they knocked off Auburn. Obviously, as a Bama guy, I'd love to see Auburn get knocked off. My sister went to UF though, and I was at her house this weekend for her baby's baptism. But she's a big Florida fan, so we had that game on. Even one of their top scorers on that team, John, transfer from Iona. So you're going to see all those small schools. They're basically a filter of talent. And the other thing that's happening, which is interesting, and I would imagine it's happening in football as well, is coaches are scouting high school players less because there's hundreds of players in the transfer portal. So they're scouting the transfer portal because they can get guys that can play just as easy as they can get high schoolers. So there's always going to be more effects of what goes on.
Yeah. Walter Clayton you're talking about. He's the first guy to score 30 points. I can't believe this.
I kick and hoop, man.
In back-to-back NCAA title games that late. So what would that be? Sweet 16, I guess.
Yeah.
Since Larry Bird.
Wow.
It's been a while.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So, and you're right. He's a transfer. They're all transfers. And that, it used to be a big deal in college football. I'm more focused on college football for obvious reasons, because eventually they're coming to the pros. And you got to at least pay somewhat attention. Can't pay attention during the season, but then you work up to it during the draft. And then as we get into it in the final month, but even then, recruiting day used to be such a big thing. And from going to Alabama, how many 5-star recruits, how many they get, how many Georgia get, blah, blah, blah. Now, they still get a bunch, but it's like, well, you got to recruit them. You got to re-recruit them every year.
Right.
Even schools like that, because if they don't play, and that's one of the things we talked about Kirby Smart being smart with, guys not playing a lot at Georgia because he made sure that everybody was playing. To keep as many people as possible, because guys even transfer out of schools like that if they're blocked and can't play.
Right.
So you got to re-recruit these kids every year. It's a disaster.
Yeah, college sports. The landscape of college sports is changing rapidly, but we'll see how it all shakes out. Johnny Mac, some Eagle news here is some top 30 visits, two new visits for the Eagles in the top 30 visits. We've been talking about these top visits because typically the Eagles do draft a guy that they bring in. So the two newest are Nick Scourton from Texas A&M. This guy played at Purdue for 22 and 23. And then
another guy,
Texas A&M, another transfer. And then Jacob Parrish is a cornerback who went to K-State, right? Kansas State. So two new visits, a cornerback and a defensive end. The interesting part about Nick Scourton, and I'll see if I can really quickly load it up. I had it up. Is he was, the Eagles tend to love guys who test super high in the RAS, which is the relative athletic score and all those things. He didn't even qualify for the RAS due to lack of measurements. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but he got an NA on the RAS score, which is always interesting. In 22 and 23, he played, I mentioned, at Purdue. Then he transferred to Texas A&M, 37 total games, logged 17 sacks, 31 tackles for a loss. And he was most productive in 23 at Purdue with 10 sacks. But he's an interesting player, John, and I think he's a real option if they want to go edge with that first pick, either at 32 or a potential trade back.
Yeah, I think, he makes a lot of sense from both a positional perspective, and also he offers a little bit of traits. You mentioned he's a bigger guy. Generally, I don't know if he worked out at the combine or not. If he doesn't have an RAS, pulled up NFL.com. If he doesn't have a RAS score, that probably means he didn't work out the combine. I know he worked out at his pro day.
Yeah, he might not have worked out, and that's what lack of measurements means, I guess, for that.
He's a bigger guy. He's a yeah, and I've been talking about that when it comes to think about what the Eagles right now, if they had to play a game on the edge, you're talking about Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Aziz Ojulari, and Josh Uche. Right there, the biggest one of the bunch is Uche.
Right.
Hunt will be because of his frames, but this kid's like 260-ish, and he can get bigger. So I think it offers not only help at the position, it also gives you a trait that you don't have. And I think he's a value. Probably, I want to come off 32. I wouldn't take him at 32, but if you can move down 32 to 45-ish and you can get him there, that's where I think the wheelhouse would be for that particular player. And I think he's a better fit than some of the other guys. The Boston College kid is still, to me, the best player the Eagles have brought in. But I find it very hard to believe he's going to last till 32. So if you're talking about realistic guys at 32 or below, I think this guy leads the list with maybe Donovan Jackson, maybe Josh Connerly, some offensive linemen. Connerly's sort of, he might go earlier, but I think there's a chance he could fall to 32. I think there's a chance. Same with this player. And he gives you that trait that you don't have. I think that would be very, very important for Vic Fangio.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. John did mention those bigger dudes, so maybe you get your power edge there. But the thing I do like about him, he's certainly a 3-down player. So if he does develop into a good NFL player,
he's also very young. The Eagles love that.
Yeah. What is his age? I didn't see his age anywhere.
20. He's going to be 21 in August. So late in training camp, August 25th, he'll turn 21. So he's very young. He's he doesn't have the greatest length. That's why he's not. And you mentioned he's a 3-down player. He's produced, unlike Shamar Stewart at the same school. He's produced at both Purdue and Texas A&M. He's from everything I see, he's advanced when it comes to a pass rushing plan. A lot of guys are just speed rushers, power. He's pretty advanced despite his young age because he played a lot at Purdue. So that part of it's good, but he's not, he's not typical. He doesn't have the length. He's only 6'3". He doesn't have the length. He doesn't have Josh Sweat type. That's what everyone wants. So there's some things you could look at him and say, all right, this has got to get better. But I think he'd be a very good fit for this particular team.
Yep, could be interesting to see what ends up happening there. But I do like that player. We'll see what ends up happening. Another edge rusher though in the room, so kind of developing a trend here. You're seeing a lot of defensive tackle guys or defensive line guys. You're seeing a lot of offensive line guys. And the other thing, John, that seems to be developing in the trend of the top 30 visits is cornerbacks. Right? They brought in a couple of cornerbacks. They brought in Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky a little bit ago. Now they got Jacob Parrish from Kansas State. Now these might be later round guys. I don't think they're top
not Hairston,
but no, not
Hairston's pretty big prospect.
He would be what though? Second rounder, right? Probably.
He could sneak into he's a bridge pick, I would say. And by that, he could go late first, early second.
Right. Gotcha.
It only takes one team, but he's definitely a bridge pick. I think he's a good fit for the Eagles, too. He's a natural off coverage player like Quinyon Mitchell was last year.
Right.
And as Slay told me, you got somebody who comes in and can play off, because it's way easier for young players just to play press. You just to point out, all right, you got this guy. To play in big scheme with all the communication, all that kind of stuff. So he's ahead of it. He's ahead of the game. Parrish, to me, he's a nickel player, slot player. Now they don't have a backup for Cooper DeJean. We just saw Big talking at the Phillies game about wants to keep Cooper DeJean in the slot. But I think what people don't understand is want and need are two different things. They want to do it. Can they afford to do it? That's up to Kaylee Ringo and Adoree Jackson. So, if Kaylee Ringo doesn't develop, if Adoree Jackson doesn't have much left, then what do you do?
Right.
Then Vic might be saying, well, I got to play him outside, but then you got to play somebody inside. And that's maybe where a kid like this factors in for depth and all that kind of stuff. Because, as much as people shit on Avonte Maddox, that dude played a lot of different positions. Could play in the slot, could play the dime, could play backup safety. And that's valuable when you have backup players on game day. And he's another guy no one talks about for obvious reasons. I mean, was a declining player. I don't blame the Eagles for getting moving on, but you got to replace him as well. And are you going to have a different backup slot, a different dime player, a different backup safety? Then you're taking up 3 players for the same spot.
You're running out of bodies. You can't. You're not going to be able to do that.
So, maybe I wouldn't think about him until day 3, though, from my perspective.
Yeah, he's the number 110 ranked prospect by PFF. So, not saying that's gospel, but you're probably looking at a late 3rd or probably a 4th round pick with somebody like Jacob Parrish there. So that'd be interesting. But 5'9", Johnny Mac, 5'9 and a half and 191 pounds. I'm bigger than this dude. I sometimes have a hard time believing. But listen, I'm not saying he's not going to be a player because of that. But boy, that is an undersized guy.
He played played outside at Kansas State, but that's why everyone projects him inside. Pro level.
You're not. I don't think you're playing outside cornerback in the NFL at 5'9".
Well, I guess who did last year pretty effectively, and Eagles fans liked him, Isaiah Rodgers. That's what we were all talking. He might not even. They list him at 5'10", but
that might be generous.
Yeah, that might be generous. And he's lighter than that. And that's one of the reasons I think the Eagles, so coming out from his pro day, measured at 5'9" and 5'8", and he was 170 pounds. Now, he played pretty well, but I think you saw, people are saying, well, Rodgers was ahead of Ringo. Why didn't they bring back Rodgers? That's the reason. They don't think he can hold up long term,
right,
on the outside. And he, for whatever reason, doesn't like the slot. Never, run fits are a big thing in the slot. Like, you got to be physical. I'll tell you right now, they're looking at a kid like Parrish and saying, is he physical enough to play inside?
It was one of the things that Cooper DeJean was impressively good at was he was a ball hawk. And he was incredible against the run. I mean, he was really good. He was really always around the
physical,
ball.
Very invites it. Good blitzer. Big likes to run blitz from the slot a lot. He's a perfect fit. He's a perfect fit for a lot of. He's just a good football player.
Yeah, excellent football player.
But this kid's slightly bigger than Rodgers. So not that you can't do it, but the Eagles are, even after they saw Rodgers do it for 350 whatever snaps, they said, well, yeah, but if that goes to 1,000, he's probably not going to be able to do it. So, sizes. And Kaylee's got 6'2", a wingspan like an NBA center, sub 4.4 speed. He's got everything you look for in an outside corner. Doesn't mean he can play.
Right. Measurables are just measurables. They do matter a little bit, but Keeley certainly has the measurables. So we'll see how it all shakes out there. But those are your 2 updates on the 2 visits, the most recent visits. So, John, we're up to 16 now, correct? 16 out of 30 that have at least we know. It could be more, but again, just from what we know, or at least has been.
And remember, that's like a 47% blind spot. So don't get, but one of the things, it's been all basically offensive, defensive linemen, except for 2 corners that you mentioned, and the running back from Texas. I believe that those are the only outliers. Everybody else has been an offensive lineman or a defensive front player. The most interesting thing to me is no tight ends. And that could be just say, we don't want to tip our hand on tight end because they're going to draft a tight end. I'm pretty confident.
Right? I mean, how the heck could they not?
I'm pretty confident they're going to draft a tight end.
You're right. Now, listen, you did point out there's 47% that we don't know about yet. So maybe there's 3 tight ends that fall in there, and they're trying to keep it close to the vest. But now we will see what happens there, obviously, with Dallas Goedert contract and that his status lingering for the Birds. So we'll see what happens there. We got Jeff Kerr in the green room. Our Jeff Kerr back in his Monday slot. We all love Jeff Kerr on a Monday morning here on Birds 365. Let's go to him now. Joining us here on Birds 365 is Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports. Make sure you guys follow him at Jeff Kerr CBS. Read all his work at CBS Sports. Jeff, how you doing on this Monday morning, brother?